Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. It is officially the coziest time of the year. It is fall, every reader's favorite season, and because it is fall, I thought that I would show you guys what I plan to read this fall during my fall TBR. This specific TBR I made for September and October to be the fall TBR. I did not include November in this TBR because I thought that by then I would want to do something different. Maybe mood read, maybe do a TBR jar video, just do something different later in the fall. Because the TBR is for 2 months, September and October, I've put 15 books on this TBR because I read approximately 7 a month. So that one extra book gives me a little bit of wiggle room to mood read a little bit, or to go a little bit above and beyond, or to just not read one that I'm really not feeling in the moment. So these are the books that I'm planning on reading this fall. I've broken this TBR up by different genres just to make it a little easier for us. So the first genre that we are going to go through is fantasy. Fantasy is the perfect fall genre in my personal opinion. It definitely fits the vibe of fall very well. And I have 2 fantasies that I'm planning on reading this year. One of them is the start of a new series or duology, and that is Six of Crows by Leah Bardugo, I think is how you say her name. I am so excited to start this duology. I've heard amazing things. There are several people in my life who say that this is their favorite fantasy world that they've ever been in, or at least one of their favorites, or that the characters are some of their favorites. So I'm really excited to jump into this. I know that the Shadow and Bone trilogy technically comes before this series. I have not read the Shadow and Bone trilogy, and I've heard that you don't necessarily have to read that trilogy in order to understand this book. I'm planning on not reading that series first, just because I've heard that that series is just okay, and I haven't found any of the Shadow and Bone books in the stores near me. And for those of you who are not aware of what Six of Crows is about, I will read the back of the book for you. Ketterdam, a bustling hub of international trade where anything can be had for the right price, and no one knows that better than criminal prodigy Kaz Brecker. Kaz is offered a chance at a deadly heist that could make him rich beyond his wildest dreams, but he can't pull it off alone. A convict with a thirst for revenge, a sharpshooter who can't walk away from a wager, a runaway with a privileged past, a spy known as Wraith, a heartrender using her magic to survive the slums, a thief with a gift for unlikely escapes. Kaz's crew are the only ones who might stand between the world and destruction, if only they don't kill each other first. So that sounds super interesting. I am excited for that one. The second fantasy that I'm going to be reading is technically a new book from a series that was already concluded, and I've already read it, and I absolutely love this series, and that is Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling. I know so many people do not like this book. I know that. I'm aware. And honestly, I don't really know what to expect from this book. I know that this is technically not a novel. I know that it is a play. It is written like a play. Here's Act 3, Scene 6. Even though I know that people don't really like this book or like this story, even people who are die-hard fans of Harry Potter say this book is not really worth it, I am so excited to read it because it has been 2 years since I finished the Harry Potter series, and I miss it. I love that series so much, and I'm just excited to have new content with these characters that I love in this world that I love. And even if it's not the best, I'm just going to be so excited to see Harry and Ron and Hermione again, and to meet their children and to see who their children become is just really exciting to me. Let me know in the comments if you liked this story or not. The last book in the fantasy genre that I'm going to be reading, I actually don't have the physical copy of, but that is Fourth Wing. Fourth Wing has been absolutely viral these past couple years, although I feel like most people have read it by now. I definitely missed the hype when it came to Fourth Wing. I didn't read it when it was really, really popular a couple years ago, so I'm going to be reading it this fall, and I'm really excited. I've heard that that novel is really high stakes, and I love high stakes fantasy, so that is going to be really fun to read. The second genre that we're going to be reading is general fiction. Now, I have 2 books in this section, and I'm so excited for both of them. The first one has been all over BookTube, and I've heard amazing things about, and that is The Story Life of A.J. Vickery by Gabrielle Zevin. This is just like a short little book. It just seems super cozy, a quick little read, and People have said that it's such an amazing story and that it also will break your heart and send you into tears. So I am excited about this one. I do love a book that pulls at your heartstrings. I do love a book that's slightly heartbreaking. So we will see if this book does that for me. On the back of the book, this one says, AJ Fickery's life is not what he expected it to be. He lives alone. His bookstore is experiencing the worst sales in its history, and now his prized possession, a rare collection of Poe poems, has been stolen. But when a mysterious package appears at the bookstore, its unexpected arrival gives Fickery the chance to make his life over and see everything anew. So this just seems super heartwarming and super cute. I know that it's also a movie, so once I read it, then I can watch the movie, and I'm excited about that. The second book in general fiction that I'm going to be reading this fall definitely falls into the October spooky kind of vibes, and that is Wicked by Gregory Maguire. This book is volume 1 in the Wicked years. I have not looked to see how many volumes that there are, but I'm super excited to read this because I know this is the origin story of the Wicked Witch of the West, and I do believe that this is also the book or the series that inspired the Broadway show Wicked. And as you can see on the cover, it's the same cover as the Broadway cover. I love the play Wicked, so I'm super excited to jump into this book. Oh, there's 4 books. It says right here on the back. The Wicked Years is a series that includes Wicked, Son of a Witch, A Lion Among Men, and Out of Oz. Okay, so there's 4 books in this series, which is great. I love a good series. This author has a lot of other works out as well, but I think the most famous is this series, specifically this book, because it's the first in the series. And it says, Wicked, now a beloved classic, is the basis for the award-winning Broadway musical of the same name. So yeah, it is the book that inspired the Broadway shows. And honestly, that definitely makes it worth the read for me. If it is good enough to be the inspiration for a Broadway play, then I'm sure I'm going to enjoy it. The next genre I'm going to be reading is romance. I only have 1 book in this genre because fall isn't typically a time where I read a lot of romance. I'm not a huge romance reader anyway, but specifically in the fall, I like to really dive into mysteries and thrillers and fantasy. So I typically read a little bit more romance during the spring and the summer. But the one romance book that I thought would be a good fit for fall is The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. I have not yet read an Ashley Poston book, but I have heard amazing things. I know most people start out with The 7-Year Slip, and that book is really, really popular, and it sounds really intriguing, and I'm really excited to read it. But The 7-Year Slip doesn't necessarily fit the fall vibes, and since I own this one and The 7-Year Slip, I thought that I would read this book first, and then I would read The 7-Year Slip maybe in the spring or the summer of next year. All right, the next genre we're going to be reading is nonfiction. I have 4 nonfiction books that I'm planning on reading in September and October. I usually read 1 or 2 nonfiction books a month, so I picked out 4 so I could read those 2 nonfiction books a month and keep on track with what I normally read for nonfiction, even though it's really tempting to just jump into a whole bunch of fantasies during the fall. So the first one that I'm going to be reading, I do not have the physical copy of because I'm reading it on Kindle Unlimited, and that is Thinking Fast and Slow. I'm actually already in the middle of this book, and so far the concepts are really interesting, but the way that the information is presented is a little slow. I'll of course give you my full thoughts when I give my Fall TBR wrap up in a couple months. But that is the first book that we are going to be reading in nonfiction. The second book that we're going to be reading was a part of my 24 books that I want to read in 2024, and that is Forgotten God by Frances Chan. This book is pretty old. I think it came out in the early 2010s or late 2000s. Yeah, 2009. So late 2000s. But considering I was really young at the time, I knew that this book existed, but I did not get a chance to read it. So I figured this year would be a good year to get caught up on some of the Christian nonfiction that I just never got around to reading. The next nonfiction book that I'm going to be reading, I am very excited about. And that is because I have heard really good things about this book, and I have heard that this book has completely transformed how people approach reading. And that is How to Read a Book by Mortimer J. Adler and Charles Van Doren. The best way to describe this book is actually by one of the reviews on the back, so I'm going to read that. How to Read a Book offers techniques designed for reading specific literary genres, be they practical books, imaginative literature, plays, poetry, history, science and mathematics, philosophy, or social science works. A recommended reading list and comprehension tests are incorporated throughout to help measure progress in reading skills, speed, and understanding across discipline. This timeless classic continues to inform and inspire book lovers year after year. I am so excited to read this book because, as it is completely obvious, I love reading reading, and I want to try to get as much out of the books as I possibly can when I'm reading them. And so this book is going to help me with that. And since it also has practical skills in it, I'm really excited to dive in and measure my progress with reading and reading comprehension in order to really get the most out of the books that I'm reading. The last nonfiction book that I'm going to be reading is Miracles by C.S. Lewis. Now, this is one of the books that has 6 of his classic works in one, so you can't just see the cover of just Miracles, but trust me, Miracles is in here. It was actually right here in the middle. I already bookmarked where it was, so I would be able to find it. I usually try to read at least one C.S. Lewis book every year for multiple reasons. One, I think that his philosophy on life is super interesting. I think that his theology is super interesting, and also the way that he writes nonfiction really stretches my mind as a reader, and it really makes me pay attention to what is being said and to try to comprehend why he said that and what he means by it. So I try to read at least one book by him every year, and this year the book that I chose was Miracles, partially because it sounds interesting and partially because it is the last book in this specific tome or collection that I haven't read, so I can mark this book completely off of my TBR when I finish Miracles. And the last genre that we're going to be reading in is actually a combination of several genres. It's mysteries, thrillers, and classics. Now, I'm combining classics with mysteries and thrillers, even though they don't necessarily usually go together, because the book that I want to read this fall is the first volume of the Sherlock Holmes collection. Like I said, this is only the first volume out of 2, but the 2 together create the entire collection of Sherlock Holmes stories. So I'm really excited to get into them. But this is a chunky boy. Like, look how thick this book is. It's not very tall, but it is thick. And the inside print is pretty small too. Either way, I'm excited to read it. This specific collection is over 1,000 pages long, so I don't know if I'm going to read every short story that is in here this fall, but I'm going to try to get through at least a couple. The next book that I'm going to be reading, I'm putting here because I don't really know where else to put it, and that is Assistant to the Villain. I don't have the physical copy of this one because, again, I try to read on Kindle Unlimited quite a bit, and Assistant to the Villain at the time of this recording is on Kindle Unlimited, so I'm going to be reading it on my Kindle. But this book sounds so fun. It's about someone who becomes the assistant to this villain, and she slowly ends up becoming super intrigued with her boss, and someone is trying to take out the boss from the inside, and so they have to figure out who is trying to take out the boss and why, and they have to try to find the mole in their inner circle. So that book just sounds super fun. I've heard really great things about it, and hopefully I'll get to that one really soon. I love tea. It's so good. The next book I'm going to be reading is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I have heard such good things about this viral book, and I'm so excited to get into it. This book sounds so good, and I know it's also a TV series now as well, so I'm excited to watch that once I read the book. So the back of this one says, this is the story of an investigation turned obsession. Pretty and popular high school senior Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend, Sal Singh, who then killed himself. And it was all anyone could talk about. And 5 years later, Pip sees how the tragedy still haunts her town. Now a senior herself, Pip decides to re-examine the closed case for her final project. At first, just to cast doubt on the original investigation. But soon she discovers a trail of dark secrets that might actually prove Sal innocent. And a line between the past and the present begins to blur. Someone in Fairview doesn't want Pip digging around for answers, and now her own life might be in danger. This one sounds so good, and I know that it's a trilogy, and I love getting into series because I love the emotional connection that you get with a character once you get to know them from multiple books. So yeah, Good Girl's Guide to Murder. The last 2 books that are on my fall TBR are thrillers, and the first thriller that I'm going to be reading is what I consider to be a classic of thrillers, if you can consider any thriller a classic, and that is The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo by Stieg Larsson. Maybe you can tell me in the comments how to say his name, because I don't actually know. I actually have no idea what this book is about. I'm going into this book completely blind, but I know it's a part of a series. There's a lot of books in the series. I think it's The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, The Girl Who Played with Fire, and The Girl Who Kicked the Hornet's Nest are the 3 that are in the original trilogy. But he had planned to write several more after that, but then he passed away. And so 3 or 4 more were put out by a different author in the same series. Of course, the writing and the style and the turn that the characters take is different than what the original author would have done. So it's a complete trilogy, but it's also a series that was never quite finished. But this is a really popular thriller that I have never read before. This is, in my mind, if you can consider a thriller a classic, this is probably the thriller that is a classic. And the last book on my fall TBR is a continuation of a series that I'm already in the middle of, and that is the Housemaid series. So I'm planning on reading The Housemaid's Secret this fall. I really liked the first book, The Housemaid. The ending definitely got me. It took a turn that I was not expecting, but some of the ways that she directed the audience gave me clues that everything was not quite what I thought that it would be. And so I was looking for something unexpected. So I kind of guessed what the main plot twist was going to be, but how she brought it about and then what happened because of that, I did not see coming at all, but I did enjoy it. So if you're new to thrillers and you don't really know where to start with thrillers or to see if you like thrillers, I definitely recommend the Housemaid series as your first thriller to try, because it's a series where it's not super intense. You can kind of see if you like it, if you like the suspense or not, but it's also well written enough that you'll actually figure out if you like the genre or not. So that is all I have for you today. That is my fall TBR. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please comment down below what is on your fall TBR. And if you've read the books that are on my fall TBR, let me know in the comments what you thought about them. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. For an official introduction, this is Cheddar. He is my Cavapoo, and he is a hot mess. Aren't you, buddy?